everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video I wanted to do a little story time with you about my 15 and pregnant story. I don't want to make this intro really long and crazy. You know by the title what the video is going to be. I did just want to give a quick disclaimer. I am not encouraging teen pregnancy. This is my story, my journey, my experience, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. So let's go ahead and get into the video. I met my daughter's biological father when I was in 6th grade, so I think you're about 11 years old there. I was new to school, I didn't have any friends. He paid attention to me, befriended me, etc., etc. Middle school, most of us tend to start getting a little bit interested in boys, so it was kind of like this crush, puppy love type thing that just kept growing, and we were together until my sophomore year of high school. So at the end of my freshman year, I found out that I was pregnant. I took the pregnancy test with him, so he was the first person to know, and I only told a couple of like my really close friends. None of my family knew at all, and I went through the whole summer without telling anybody that I was pregnant. I wasn't going to the doctors, I was not taking prenatals. I was going to volleyball tournaments and volleyball clubs and classes and things like that, so I definitely was not taking care of myself and my baby in the way that I should have been. But I really was in a total state of denial. I took the pregnancy test and I was like, okay, I'm pregnant. And that was kind of as far as it went. I didn't really think about it any further than that for some reason. I don't know why. It didn't click in my brain that my life was going to be forever changed no matter what decision I ended up making. My life was never going to be the same. But it didn't click in my head until I told my parents. So trying out for my high school volleyball team, I disclosed to a girl that was also trying out that I was pregnant. She told her mom, her mom told my stepmom at the time, my dad, my mom. My dad came to me, he said, there's a pregnancy test in the bathroom. I want you to take that pregnancy test and leave it there. And I said, Dad, I've already taken a couple of pregnancy tests. And he said, well, you know, what was the result? And I didn't say anything. I couldn't bear to tell him. And I remember he patted me on the back and he said, well, maybe you took them wrong. And my heart sank a little bit because I knew I didn't take them wrong. I knew I was pregnant. I knew I was about to crush my parents' hearts. So I took the test, left it on the bathroom, and soon enough I had my mom calling me, my brothers and sisters calling me and texting me. My mom was like yelling at me, and she was like, if you were here in front of me right now, I might smack you. And I was crying and I was like, Mom, I know I don't need this right now. And she apologized to me. And a couple of days later, I went to my mom's house and I went and I cleared out my locker. And during those like couple of days at my dad's, I stayed in my room pretty much the whole time. I didn't say anything. My dad didn't speak to me. And he took me to my mom's house and we sat on a bench. And my mom told me, she said, I can't make this decision for you. I can't try to sway your decision one way or another. Just know that whatever you decide to do, I'm going to love you and support you through this. And my dad, you know, he was like, you really need to think about what you're doing. You're 15 years old, you're still in high school. Look at your baby's biological father. You can't drive, you don't have a job. You know, you can't raise a baby at 15 years old. I switched schools. I didn't talk to my dad for quite some time. I think he was just in a total state of shock and he didn't even know what to think that his 15-year-old daughter was going to have a baby with a guy that he couldn't stand. And yeah, so I switched schools and I went to my doctor's appointment and I was 14 weeks pregnant. So I was close to 4 months pregnant by the time anybody actually knew, which I don't think my parents knew that I was as far along as I was. Her biological dad kind of told me that maybe I should think about getting an abortion, but I knew in my heart that I wasn't going to do that. Eventually I started to outgrow my clothes and my mom called my dad and she said, you need to take her maternity shopping. She's growing out of her clothes, her pants no longer button. And that was the first time I saw my dad or really spoke to him since I told him that I was pregnant. And to this date, it was the most awkward encounter I've ever had with my dad. It was so incredibly awkward. My mom did not come with us to go maternity shopping. My dad was just really frantically like rushing through the racks and pulling things off, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know what maternity clothes were. And I actually still have one of the pairs of pants, I guess, that I bought and these are them. Like these sweatpant, jogger type things. I didn't know what I was doing, and neither did he. So I started going to this new school, lived with my mom. Things are really rocky with my dad, and her biological father and I were still together at this point. He basically told me that either I move in with him and go to the school that he found with the daycare in the back, or he's not going to be in my life or in the baby's life. So I made the decision to move in with him. Now I'm sure what a lot of you guys are thinking, what parents in their right mind would let their 15-year-old daughter move in with her boyfriend? But I was having a baby, and my mom knew that it wasn't going to work out, but you know, she said she has to find that out on her own, or else she's always going to blame us that it didn't work out. So she has to figure this out on her own. So I moved in with him and his mom. I started going to this new school, and eventually I dropped out of high school. Dropping out of high school was not a choice. I didn't drop out voluntarily. Her biological dad kind of forced me and deceived me to drop out, but that's a whole nother story. I am kind of thinking about making a video on that, on our relationship as a whole, because it was toxic and abusive. But anyways, yeah, so I dropped out of school. I was living with him and his mom. I was miserable, and eventually I had my baby. I went into labor, and it was the most intense experience ever. My mom, my dad were there, my brothers were there, my nephew was there, his mom was there. My dad was rubbing my back, and my mom was holding my hand, and they were both hovered over me, crying their eyes out, like bawling their eyes out. I think it was just probably a really hard thing to watch their 15-year-old daughter have a baby. So I had her, and she was beautiful. I made the decision to keep her. I loved her. As soon as I saw her on the sonogram, I had this instant love with her, and I knew, like, in my heart that I couldn't give her up. However, I have a sister, and she offered to adopt her. She said, I will raise her, she'll live with me, you can come and visit her anytime that you want, and she's always going to know that you're her mom. And I actually thought about this decision for a very long time, and I actually considered it up until about 4 weeks before she was born. I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't think that my baby was going to be best off with me, and I really considered letting my sister adopt her, but in the end I chose to keep her. Her biological father was not an active father. He didn't change diapers or get up at night, anything like that. He didn't allow me to go back to school, and 6 weeks after she was born, I left. I escaped, actually. My camera overheated. Anyways, so I left him, moved back in, kind of bouncing back and forth between my mom and my dad. I was still going to the school that had the daycare in the back, and I was going through a really lengthy court process, but I went back to school. I got my permit, I got my license. I was doing like little side jobs like cleaning people's houses and things like that to earn money. We got a restraining order. We went to trial. We had to subpoena witnesses, and he ended up getting supervised visitations, which he didn't actually start doing until she was about 7-8 months old. The summer after I had her, I really wasn't in a good mindset. I was dealing with a lot just from court and school. I was really far behind with my schoolwork from kind of being like forced to drop out. I was going to college classes, I was taking online classes, going to school. At one point I was taking 17 classes at once just to make sure that I was catching up. The summer after I had her, I really wasn't in a good mindset. I was kind of like dating this guy, and he's a good guy, but he liked to go out on the weekends and party and drink and smoke and do those things, and as a mom, that's not where my headspace needed to be, and I didn't go out and do those things, but it kind of just gave me this notion like I want to be out with my friends. Like, I'm 16 years old now, and it's summer and I'm out of school, and you know, I really like miss being out with my friends. But I still was at home taking care of my daughter, catching up on schoolwork, doing every single night feeding, every diaper change, every doctor's appointment and errand and anything else, and just was really trying to focus on being a mom and kind of trying to find this balance with this new life that I had. I remember at one point in time, because my daughter didn't sleep through the night until she was 3 years old. Not 3 months, not 13 months, 3 years she did not sleep through the night. She was an incredibly hard baby. She had colic. She cried and cried and cried. She woke up a lot. She never slept well unless like she was on me. I always had to carry her. And I remember like there was one point in time, it was in the middle of the night. I was up for like the 5th time with her. She was crying. I was crying. I was rocking her back and forth, just like praying that she would go back to sleep. And I was crying and I was just thinking like, did I make the right decision? I wasn't ready to be a mom. I thought about giving her to my sister. I really thought that I couldn't do it. I was just tired and drained and going through so much. Like I genuinely believed that I could not do it. I could not be a mother at 16 years old. But eventually things got better. We ended up moving down to Southern California. Before we moved, my daughter's biological father was fairly involved in her life, saw her like every other weekend and usually like once during the week. Started to become more active, moved down to Southern California, and then pretty soon we lost contact with him. I actually paid for her to come up for a visit to go and see him because I was just going through some stuff that I had to get settled down in Southern California. And she came back and she was traumatized. She started wetting the bed. She stopped sleeping through the night again, had really bad separation anxiety. She wouldn't get out of my car if there was a car next to me that looked like her dad's, and so I never sent her back. And he never tried to come down and see her or anything. We lost all contact with him. I don't know where he is to this day. I don't know his phone number. I don't know where he lives. I know that he has 2 other biological children now. I'm not going to say if he is involved in their life or not, because I mean, I guess I don't really know. And I have added 2 more kids to my family. She is now, she'll be 7 here in a couple of months. She is the most wonderful thing that's ever happened to me. She taught me so much. She forced me to grow up and to mature and to love myself and to hold myself to a higher standard and respect myself. She was like the biggest blessing in my life, and she literally saved my life. I think that if it wasn't for her, I would have never left the abusive relationship that I was in. I didn't have enough self-confidence and self-love to leave for myself. But when I looked at my daughter, I knew that she deserved better. And she was what motivated me and forced me to leave that abusive relationship that I was in. So she's like my saving grace. She's a blessing from God. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Every sleepless night, every tear, every time we went to court, every sleepless night, every diaper change, everything was so worth it to have her and to raise her. I did end up graduating. I went back to the school with the daycare. At the end of my junior year, the daycare closed down, so I had to leave that school. I wasn't 18 yet, so they wouldn't allow me to do, allow me to go to an independent adult school. So I moved back in with my mom. I started going to the high school down there, and it worked, but my mom was sick and it was really hard for her to take care of my daughter. So I ended up leaving there, hooking up with a teen parent worker who went, and we had a meeting at the school with the adult education center, and they allowed me to do my independent study through there, even though I was not 18 to graduate. And at that point in time, from going to college classes and taking online classes and things like that, I actually got very far ahead, and I only needed a couple of credits left to graduate. I graduated from high school early. My goal was to graduate on time. I graduated early. I didn't go to prom. I didn't have a graduation ceremony, nothing like that. I missed out on a lot of high school experiences and teenage things. Most of my teenage years I had a baby, so I wouldn't trade it for the world. Now, it was so incredibly hard, but so incredibly worth it at the same time. I apologize for the background noise. My 3-year-old just is bouncing off the walls. I'm so incredibly grateful to my mother, who loved and supported me through everything, to my dad, who, when I was pregnant, took me shopping and bought everything that I needed for my daughter. Crib, diapers, clothes, a wipe warmer. My family ended up being so incredibly supportive, and I'm so eternally grateful for them. I could not have done it without their help. It's a really difficult couple of years. Now she's older and she's the best thing that's ever happened to me. So I do want to make a video eventually on my relationship with her biological father, what I went through, what I experienced, because it definitely was not pleasant. Not a fairy tale happy ending for sure, but I really want to share and express my side with that because I think it's important for people to hear, and especially young girls. Anyway, so that is it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching and listening to my story. Like I said, I'm not promoting or encouraging teenage pregnancy. It's incredibly hard. And just for a disclaimer, yes, I was on birth control. I was taking the pill. I was back and forth a lot between like my mom's, my dad's, volleyball tournaments, things like that. I would forget the pill. I had a very negative influence in my life who really talked down to me for taking the pill. She called them my WHORE pills. She made fun of me for taking them. She talked down on me. It made me feel guilty, so I would kind of skip a day here and there. Not that it's her fault, it was my responsibility, but she really shamed me for taking them. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching and listening to my story, especially if you made it to this point. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to see you guys in my future video. Bye, guys.